All right, guys, Wes here. Welcome back to the channel. So Starfield just got a pretty big update, and in this video, we're going to talk about all of those details. We also got a glimpse of what the future holds with the Shattered Space DLC. Land vehicles are coming to Starfield. This update also brought big improvements to surface maps, new gameplay options for difficulty, and more, as well as the highly requested 60 FPS option for the Xbox Series X. We have a lot to talk about, guys, so check the video chapters for easy viewing, and let's get into it. Now, before we talk about land vehicles being added to the game and the new Shattered Space DLC, let's first talk about some of the new updates that are now available via the Steam beta for Starfield. So according to the patch notes, they said Starfield's latest update is here and it's bringing several new features with it. So one of the first updates that they improved on was the surface maps. Now they said, we've heard your feedback and we've made some big improvements to surface maps. Now, one thing that I'd like to highlight with this is I feel like there was a reason that they didn't add the surface maps in the first place. And that's because if you look at the surface maps themselves, like, and you look outside of like the big city areas, just look at the terrain. Like, if you could see right here, the terrain looks very samey, and I feel like if they had those surface maps at launch, like they probably could have, then that would probably take people out of the immersion just in general. Like, the fact that you could see the textures and it looks like every single thing looks the same is almost immersion breaking. So hopefully they have plans to improve the procedural generation so it doesn't look all the same. Like, I think that's one of the beauties of Minecraft is how they use chunks where you have different biomes for different areas. Now, for some planets, it makes sense that it looks all the same, but on a planet like Jemison, where there's a lot of variations in terrain, you would think that that variation would be reflected by the local map. Now, speaking of the local map and just the planet maps in general, there's actually a Reddit thread that I'd like to talk about that has some serious implications for the future. So prior to the Steam beta, there was a hard limit on how far you could travel on a given planet. Now, before, according to this Reddit thread, you could travel 150 kilometers, but then you would just crash. But after the beta update, the user said, this time I did not crash at 150 kilometers. I did not crash at all. I just got bored after 190 kilometers traveled. To which user Baguetto said, my guess is there's not a hard limit on how far you can go, but you can still crash from time to time. They then said that this time the world and physics were less glitchy and vegetation and flora was still visible and scannable after 30 to 40 kilometers. They also said the map was updated as I went forward without any glitch or problem. So who knows, maybe the map boundaries will be changed with the new vehicle. Now, as a user pointed out in the comment section, it confirms the theory that they're possibly working on making each planet a single cell, which if they end up implementing that correctly, that means you could possibly ride and explore throughout the entire planet without any loading screens. Not to mention making it a single cell of a planet, they could actually map out the different biomes and kind of chunk load things as you travel. Now, this is where things get interesting. If they're able to do single cell planets, not only is that great news for the new land vehicle coming up, but the implications that this has with flying around the planet's atmosphere, possibly even from space to the planet's atmosphere, are like really real. Now, obviously the Creation Engine 2 does have its limits, but honestly, anything is possible. And honestly, if it's not done by Bethesda themselves, then it's going to be some modder that just wakes up one day and chooses violence and cooks up a game-changing mod for the game's traversal. So moving right along, we have some new gameplay options that were just recently added to Starfield with this beta update. They said in the patch note, for those of you who like a bit of extra challenge or want to make some aspects of the game easier, you could customize your experience with brand new options in the settings menu. Want to make ground combat harder but ship combat easier, you can do just that. So the others are enemy combat damage, player combat damage, enemy ship damage, player ship damage, aim assist, obviously, ammo weight, carrying capacity, cargo access distance, vendor credits, medical item healing, food healing, sleep healing, sustenance, combat affliction gain, affliction treatment, affliction prognosis, environmental damage and afflictions, environmental damage and restoration, which is all great. I love the ability to customize the experience to however you want. You could either make the game very difficult or you can make it very hard. Now, this is not the survival mode that the developers talked about previously. We will be getting a survival mode eventually, but that will happen in a future update. This right here is specifically tailored to just difficulty. So moving right along, there has been some updates to the ship builder as well as the container. Now, for the ship builder, you can actually decorate the interior of ships. They said in the patch notes, now you could decorate your ships just like you can with outposts. This was one of the biggest concerns that I had prior to launch, where it just felt like every ship was just kind of like a Lego where you just snapped it together and then it was complete. But now with the update, you could fully decorate your ship, which is pretty cool. Next up, they added tabs to container menus to make managing your inventory easier. The overall inventory management for Starfield still needs some work, but this container menu update does help. So moving right along, they added the ability to change traits and appearances after entering the Unity. They also added dialogue camera toggle in the settings, which honestly, I really like this dialogue toggle. It makes it a little bit more immersive. Now, one feature that I would like to see is the ability to like zoom in on the face at will. Honestly, similar to how Cyberpunk does it, where if you're talking to somebody, you can zoom in and out. So now by far the biggest update coming to Starfield for the Xbox Xbox Series X is the new display settings. Now in the patch notes, they said this, and I quote, "We've heard from many of you that you'd like more control over the graphic fidelity and performance on Xbox. Similar to how PC players can customize their experience, we're now enabling that on Xbox Series X with a few options that you can use to find the best fit for your playstyle and display. For each of these, we highly recommend a variable refresh rate, or VRR, running at 120 Hz, and to verify your Xbox is set up to use it, if you have it set up this way, Starfield will now default to a frame rate target of 40 while keeping the priority for full visuals." They continued by saying frame rate target, you can now choose between 30, 40, and 60, or an uncapped frame rate on VRR displays. If you do not have a VRR display running at 120 Hz, you will still be able to select between 30 or 60, but screen tearing may occur at times when selecting 60 on a non-VRR display. Now they also continue to say you can now prioritize between visuals and performance while trying to maintain the target frame rate. And then if you're choosing a frame rate target of 60 or above, we recommend changing this to performance. Prioritizing visuals keeps the highest resolution while maintaining full detail for special effects, lighting, and crowds. Prioritizing performance lowers internal resolution and detail for special effects, lighting, and crowds. Both modes may adjust internal resolutions dynamically when scenes or actions get heavier as well. And then when switching between modes, you will see the lighting change briefly as the system catches up to the new mode. I'm not gonna lie to you, I did not think that they would be adding 60 FPS mode to Xbox Series X this soon. I thought it was going to be a situation where we would have to wait for like the new Xbox Series console if they plan on doing that for a 60 FPS option for Starfield. So the fact that they did this within 7 months is pretty cool. It still should have happened at launch, but I'm fine with how it is now. Now the Series S is still 30 FPS as well, so hopefully they eventually get that updated to 60, but I'm sure that that's going to require a bunch more work under the hood to get that console at 60 FPS. Like, I just don't see it happening, but who knows, anything could happen. So next up, there was some other general bug fixes. There's a big section here, so we're not going to go over every single bug fix. We're going to talk about some of the quest related stuff in a minute though. But for some of the general improvements, they said general stability and performance improvements, general improvements for character fleeing, avoidance, and pathfinding, fixed various issues with object placement. But then the gameplay, like I said, they updated a bunch of stuff. The graphics were also improved. They improved the look of depth of field in specific cases. They fixed some issues with the visual effects as there were some artifacts. There were some updates to the outpost that I'll put on the screen right here. You guys can pause. And then for the quest, they fixed the back to the grind mission. They resolved an issue that would cause the camera to unintentionally return to first person when exiting the interview. They fixed the mission breaking the bank, breach of contract, crew encounter, hostile intelligence, resolved an issue that could cause steam tunnels to become inaccessible if the mission area was left for a long time. For the legacy's end, they resolved an issue that would cause NPCs to be cold depending on where the player is located. And like I said, there was a bunch of other quest updates that were all really good stuff. Now this is where we get to the exciting part of the video. We do have some news regarding the DLC Shattered Space, as well as a highly requested feature at launch, and that was vehicles. Like we mentioned earlier, we got our first look at the vehicles in Starfield. There will be a land vehicle that we will be able to use. We got a fully functioning land vehicle coming to Starfield, and I am so excited. With the updates to the surface map, with Bethesda confirming that they will be focusing on exploration in a future update, so pairing up the ability to travel across a planet with a land vehicle and then having the planet be actually filled with stuff to do all seems very interesting. One of my biggest concerns about Starfield was the lack of exploration. Not saying that you can't explore the planets, but like there's really nothing to do whenever you're on a planet. Part of the reasons that I love the Fallout games as well as the Elder Scrolls is there was so much handcrafted stuff to do on those maps, and you really got that sense of exploration. Whenever you're walking around in Skyrim, you see places that you've never seen before and you just go through and explore them. You didn't really get that with Starfield, and I hope they fix that eventually. It sounds like that is something that is on Todd Howard's mind. So I think for the future of Starfield, they need to improve the overall exploration, the procedural generation, possibly make it so that the maps are single cell, and then have different biomes with randomly generated as well as handcrafted stuff to do on those maps. But like I said, we're finally getting land vehicles. Whether or not that's going to be in the next update or with Shattered Space DLC, I don't know, but I for one am really hyped the land vehicles are coming to the game. So next up, and the final topic that we have, is we got our first look at the Shattered Space DLC that is releasing in the fall. It was officially confirmed by Todd Howard that Shattered Space will indeed be releasing this fall. I'm guessing that we're going to be getting our first look at the Shattered Space DLC during the Xbox showcase that has been announced for this June, with the update releasing in the fall. Now, if you guys didn't know, Shattered Space DLC will primarily focus on one of the factions, House Varun. If you guys look at this screenshot right here, like this DLC looks like it's about to be wild. I cannot wait to play it, but we didn't really get many other details. Either way, I'm looking forward to the reveal this summer because again, the hype is definitely real. Starfield seems like it's on the path of success. This update was was a great step in the right direction. The game will continue to get better, and I almost hope that Bethesda will keep a team focused on Starfield to make this game the best space exploration game ever created. But that's gonna wrap it up with this video, guys. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section. Hit the like button if you've enjoyed. Subscribe with your notifications turned on so you're not missing out on any future gaming updates and news. And until next time, this has been Wes, and I'll talk to you guys again soon.